Hey there, CS320 students. So in this recording, we're going to go through working with a list of the school objects that we started with. So what we want to be able to do here in this recording is, can we add a school to our list? And then we also want to provide some validation that we can't add duplicate schools. So first thing we're going to do is, in our driver class, again, I'm using the same tutorial as before. I wiped out all the code from before. And so now we're going to create a list of type school. We'll call it schools. And we'll make an array list implementation from it. So let's go ahead and get our imports taken care of. And let's go ahead and add some schools to our list. So we'll create Maplewood School. And we'll give it the ID of 1, 2, 3. We'll add a second school. And why is it not? Oh, might help if I put new school on there, right? Got to call the constructor. And we'll add one more school. We'll call it Jefferson Elementary. Okay, so we've got our schools added to our list. So let's go ahead and print out the schools that we have. And to print out our school details, let's go back to the school class. If we didn't add a toString implementation earlier, let's go ahead and add a toString annotation. That's going to be imported through Lombok. And that'll just give us a nice way of seeing our school with the name and ID. So let's go ahead and loop through all of our schools. So school, in schools, and we'll do a system.out.println school. And that should print out the 3 schools that we have with their name and their ID. Okay, great. You can see we get our 3 school names, we get their IDs, everything is looking pretty good there. Now, the reason I use the for each loop is this is typically used when we're just going to print out all of our schools, or we want to see if something's in there. We can't manipulate a list as we're looping through it this way. Java will throw a concurrent modification exception if we're trying to modify it. So this is great to just display what we have. All right, so let's add another school, but what we want to do now is validate that the new school ID doesn't exist. Okay, so our schools have to have a unique ID. We want to make sure that we don't add one with an existing ID. So we could do something like this: Boolean is valid ID. Let's go ahead and say string new ID equals, we'll go with the 1, 2, 3. And let's loop through our schools list. And so this time I want to check if the school dot get ID dot equals the new ID. And if that's the case, is valid ID equals false, right? We found a school that has the exact same ID. And so we're going to set the variable to false, and then we can break out of the loop. We don't need to continue looping anymore. All right, so now we can come down here and let's see here. So we've got a variable is valid ID. So if is valid ID, if that's true, then we can go ahead and add it to our list. So schools.add new school We'll go new name, new ID, and we need the name up here. So we'll say new name equals Washington Elementary. And we need to default this to, let's say, true. So we'll say it's true. We find out that we have a duplicate. That means it's false. So if it's true, great, we can add. Otherwise, cannot add duplicate ID. And we'll even tell them what the ID is. Okay, I think this is all going to work just fine. So run as Java application. Great. We see our 3 schools that we started with. We see that we tried to add 1, 2, 3. We see that it is not valid. So we get the message cannot add that duplicate ID. Great. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and print out our schools after here. So let's go ahead and make one so that we can add it. So let's say that the ID is 1, 2, 3, 4. Right click, run as. All right. So we originally had these 3 schools, but now you can see we have 4 because we were able to add a new school with a unique ID. So a nice way to check to make sure that something doesn't exist already in our list implementation. Okay, next time we'll talk about deleting an element that is already in our list.